It's time for the 3 count, our 3 questions of the week here on the Heel to the Face podcast. As always, we start with our Twitter question of the week. The results, 58% said yes, 42% said no to the question, do you now see Brock Lesnar holding the WWE Universal Championship into 2018? That means when the ball drops in Times Square on December 31st, 2017, Brock Lesnar is still your champion. I voted yes.
Yes, I voted yes as well. I think he's going to. I think he's going to have the title up to WrestleMania. And Paul is with us. Paul, what do you think, buddy?
Absolutely not. Brock Lesnar is not going to be champion all the way up until 2018. I don't see that happening. Something is going down. I don't care when it happens, but it's going to happen. I don't see Brock Lesnar continuing to be champion all the way to December 31st. I don't buy that storyline. I don't buy the crap that he's going to be the champion till WrestleMania. I'm not buying any of that garbage.
Why? Tell us why, Paul.
Why? It's garbaggio. I know that he survived SummerSlam, and I know Jarod was clicking his heels like Dorothy from Wizard of Oz because he was yet again correct. But I don't care. To me, it doesn't. Just because he survived SummerSlam doesn't mean that he's going to continue to be champion. I think they're just setting it up for a bigger surprise that none of us are prepared for.
I hope that doesn't happen. I mean, I think Brock Lesnar now for sure. And getting to our second question in just a minute, I feel that the reason of the second question is Brock Lesnar is going to be holding this belt. I think he's going to be holding this belt into WrestleMania. And I think it's going to be him against Roman Reigns. Unfortunately, regardless, I don't want to see him against Roman Reigns regardless. But I think when you have him win that match that a lot of us thought he was going to lose, it was either, I felt like this, it was either he was going to lose that match or he was going to win that match and he's going to hold this belt for a very long time. So they won the match, so I feel now he's going to hold that belt for a very long time because of it. I feel he's going to put on a great match with Braun Strowman, and to be honest with you, if he does lose that championship against Braun Strowman at the next pay-per-view No Mercy, I still feel that he's going to get it back and hold it in kind of like a back-and-forth type thing going into 2018. I just don't feel...
Strowman's the next champion.
I don't feel that Brock Lesnar is going to be hanging around at Royal Rumble and at WrestleMania chasing the belt. I feel that his time in WWE is probably going to come to a close at WrestleMania, so I don't feel he's going to be chasing the belt. I think he's going to be giving up the belt in those times, not chasing the belt. And when you have Brock Lesnar around, he's either the champion or he's chasing the championship. You don't have him around for any other reason.
Yeah, he's not going to be a mid-carder.
So I don't feel he's going to be chasing the championship going into 2018.
Yeah, but I'm good with it.
But you know what? That's why we have these polls, and like I said, it wasn't a clear cut, 100%. Obviously,
it was pretty split.
We had some of the minority in here. We had some, of the Donald Trump style supporters, and Paul over here. So thinking that Brock Lesnar, and that's why we have these Twitter questions of the week. As always, you can find our Twitter question of the week at Heel to the Face. And before we get to our second question, Brandon,
Paul, you were supposed to say fake news. Come on, that's like
I know. I missed
dropped the ball.
Well, I missed the cue. There's 2 more questions.
We'll get to the next 2. Go ahead, Jarod.
So, keeping with Brock Lesnar, kind of, in his former profession turned into his current profession, turned into his former profession, turned into what might once again be his current profession. UFC and mixed martial arts, a guy he's been feuding with, trying to get a match with in the UFC when he does return to mixed martial arts. Jon Bones Jones, he has just failed another USADA drug test, which this is the second time in over a year, which could mean that he is banned from UFC for, if not forever, but a long period of time. Right now he is facing a forfeiture of his purse of his Daniel Cormier fight, his victory being overturned, a forfeiture of his title, and 4 years of ineligibility by the USADA. So my question is, and a lot of people are kind of thinking, well, maybe then this Jon Jones Brock Lesnar feud could move over to WWE. A lot of people are saying that they could have a wrestling match and have this feud take place in the squared circle instead of the octagon. My question is, and I don't really know the possibility of it, but this is a question probably most people aren't asking. They obviously are saying Jon Jones and Brock Lesnar in the same ring together in WWE for entertainment purposes. But is it possible? Is it even, could it happen? Do you think it could happen? The WWE has Brock Lesnar versus Jon Bone Jones, but not in a WWE style match, in a WWE ring or in a WWE arena, like in a WWE event, but maybe Vince McMahon, because he is outside of the USADA, put on a mixed martial arts match between these two more than open competitors to mixed martial. Again, this, because remember, he's done it before. If we all remember the Brawl for All, that was boxers versus wrestlers in actual non-scripted boxing matches. And the difference there was that was wrestlers in non-scripted boxing matches a lot of times versus either other wrestlers or versus boxers. This time you're not putting in a WWE guy. You're putting in two people who are more than open to wrestling or competing in mixed martial arts. So you're not throwing Billy Gunn or Roman Reigns in there. These are two mixed martial artists that you're having compete against each other. I would say that they wouldn't be against it. Do you think this is a possible thing that could happen? We'll start with Paul.
Two things. First off, I want to let due process take its course because it's kind of like a fanboy. I really am hoping that John Jones, somehow it was a diluted sample. Somehow I'm hoping for the latter because his title has not been stripped yet, but that is the punishment that is weighing on his potential conscience. So for me, I'm hoping that it doesn't. But let's just say, for the sake of this question, that it is. I think it would take John Jones some time to get over the fact that he would be banned from the UFC. I think that he would strongly consider Bellator as another possible option. But ultimately, maybe a WrestleMania scenario, since there may be enough time in between, where he kind of gets over the fact that perhaps his mixed martial arts career is over and the money opportunity that Vince McMahon could assuredly offer him. I think that's a real possibility that John Jones could move to the squared circle, rather, and see what he could do against Brock Lesnar. The thing I'm kind of intrigued by, it's not really bad blood, because the only thing we've really seen is after Jones took care of Daniel Cormier at UFC 214, he just kind of said, hey, I'll see you there, and, his trash talk was a little suspect. So I'm not really sure if there's any bad blood, like we could see some actual fighting in the actual match, because I still, the Brock Lesnar-Randy Orton thing from a couple of months ago, where he bashed Randy Orton in and just kind of went across the line. I still think there's some of that potential in a match of this caliber, but I'm intrigued by it, and of course I think Vince McMahon would be a proponent of it, as progressive as he is.
Yeah, Vince McMahon, it's all about the dollars and cents with him, and you know what? John Bones, not only would John make the money, but Vince would make a lot of money too. It makes too much sense for them not to do it if this were the case. I hope it doesn't happen. Paul, I'm with you on the whole thing. Let's see where due process, where it takes place.
He does have another drug sample that is being tested currently right now that the results have not come back. And the question is, it's not about if John Bones Jones would join WWE and put on the show inside a wrestling style match. It's the question of, do you think it's possible that they could have an actual mixed martial arts match
possible outside
of the UFC, kind of not a slap in the face to Dana White, but kind of like a, hey, if you don't want to put it on, we'll put it on. And another reason
they don't. What regulations do they have to live by? Because like two guys can have a street fight in the back parking lot. I don't think there's anything preventing World Wrestling Entertainment from holding what you're calling some sort of mock MMA match, because the UFC has this higher regard in terms of.
I think there would be some sort of stipulation. They would have to abide by some sort of state regulations, federal regulations, stuff like that, if they're going to actually have mixed martial arts styles. My thing is, they don't follow the exact same rules that UFC follows. Like you said, if he leaves UFC because of this, if he gets banned from UFC, he can go over to Bellator. So, WWE can kind of open itself up to that. And the only thing that really makes me think that this is even a possibility is the fact that we've seen WWE hosts non-scripted things before. Big Show versus Aki Bono at WrestleMania 21 was an honest sumo match. That's why the Big Show lost within like 25 seconds, because it was a non-scripted actual sumo match. Big Show got in there and it was like a 10-second, let's see what you can do. They've hosted the Brawl for All, which was actual non-scripted, the best guy wins style boxing. Hence why Butterbean beat Billy Gunn in about 25 seconds.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. And this is kind of, all of this is kind of symbolic of what we might be seeing this Saturday in the boxing world, and where somebody crosses over into a sport where they're like, hey, I'm a big shot here, and I'm going to go over to your sport. Hence, we saw the Big Show is not a sumo wrestler, despite how big he is, and he'd lose to an actual sumo wrestler in 1 second, just like how we saw how Billy Gunn is a great professional wrestler and loses to an actual boxer in about 20 seconds. So I wonder if that's a precursor to what we're going to see when a UFC fighter tries to get in the ring with an actual boxer in a boxing match this Saturday night.
Let me just jump on that real quick. You're going to see a whole different scenario with that case. You're going to see an MMA fighter, and you heard it here, an MMA fighter is going to take the boxer out in his own game. Just saying it.
Well,
Yeah,
That's
that's
it.
what's going to happen.
We
Thank
will
you.
see this Saturday night. But what's nice about the scenario I'm proposing, this isn't a Roman Reigns challenging Brock Lesnar to an actual MMA fight. This isn't The Rock or John Cena. These would be two MMA guys. This would be a guy who was literally never professional wrestled in John Jones, who was only an MMA guy going against another mixed martial artist, essentially, in Brock Lesnar. So it wouldn't be. It would probably be. Now, I wouldn't say better than the fight we're getting this week in the sense of the product that we're getting of two guys in that respective field. But that's why I think it's a possibility, because they've stepped out of professional wrestling before on a WWE program. And I think it's a possibility because we're not getting somebody outside of, because I essentially think if Brock Lesnar fought anybody in WWE that's not a mixed martial artist, it would be one of the biggest bloodbaths you've ever, if he took on Roman Reigns in a MMA match or anybody in an MMA match, that's not John Jones, that's an actual just WWE wrestler. It would be the biggest joke I've ever seen.
Living encyclopedia of WWE. Have they ever had a moral high ground in terms of they wouldn't do something because they're like, oh, I don't know. They would sacrifice business for morals. Have they ever done that for ethics?
They haven't.
They're changing that way nowadays. I say this kind of funny because of the fact that the other day I was watching the bracketology for the Mae Young Classic, and all I could think about is how Lita was talking about Mae Young being the leader of women in the past, and how she's this statuette. She's this Bruno Sammartino of women, essentially, the way that they're memorializing her in this women's championship. And I was just kind of laughing because it was not about 12 years ago that the first time, and to be honest with you, the only time in my entire life I have seen somebody over the age of 80 years old without a top on was in the world of World Wrestling Entertainment. Yes, WWE, if you don't remember so, it's insane, and it was probably the craziest thing that they've ever done, but had a topless, and I don't mean topless like behind the scenes, I mean an actual Playboy X-rated style topless 80-year-old Mae Young in a WWE ring where, oh, by the way, about half of the crowd is probably under 18 at Madison Square Garden for the Royal Rumble 2000. That was a month after we saw a topless cat in front of a crowd in Fort Lauderdale, in which that pay-per-view had to then in the future be rated TVMA when sold on VHS and DVD. So in that sense, they've never had a moral high ground, but this, again, isn't the year 2000. This is where we're memorializing Mae Young for her wrestling skills and not putting her in a blow-up pool of pudding. So the WWE has changed.
Or don't forget sexual chocolate either.
Yeah.
Or
her giving birth to a hand. So the WWE has changed in that regard. So I would say that their moral high ground, in the past, was much different. If this was the year 2000, I would say, anything goes. They would put Brock Lesnar and John Jones in a ring and just let them fight. And they wouldn't even try to make it look like an MMA match. They would just go out of the way, and the bloodier, the better. They are a little bit different now in the sense of they're much more family-oriented. So I would say that in the past, this would definitely be as positive as they can go. But now it might be a little different. I don't think, though, it would be the moral high ground that would hold them back. I would think it would be the logistics of them holding an MMA-style match. But the question was, is it possible? And if it's possible and they did it, I think that would be pretty awesome. Just saying.
Me too.
Final question this week. So every time we watch NXT TakeOver and a longtime champion loses their championship match, essentially right before a big pay-per-view like WrestleMania or SummerSlam, as we saw this past week, that former champion then is now debuting on either Raw or SmackDown on the WWE main roster, kind of how Enzo and Cass lost their tag belts and showed up on Monday Night Raw. So my question is there a better way, aka less predictable way, to bring a superstar from NXT to WWE's main roster without them losing their title in their last match? The problem with that,
yes,
I feel, is if they lose a title in their last match, they're coming in on a losing streak. They're not coming in as hot as they can be. They're coming in as a loser. Two, it's predictable. Hey, this guy was champion for 2.5 years. He lost the belt. I wonder what's going to happen now.
He's not going to go after the NXT
title. So is there a way,
again.
and Paul, you said yes, so I'm going to let you say, do you have an answer for us?
Yes. I think it's very simple. I think easily what we can do is when a guy is deemed quote unquote ready and he's the NXT champion, continue your storyline as normal. He's the champion.